Hey YouTube, how's everybody doing? This is my little vlog or documentary or escape. It's called A Day in the Life with a Schizophrenic. None of this is rehearsed, none of this is written down, none of this is brainstormed. This is just all what's on my mind, coming straight out to you all. I just want to start off by saying that I'm currently 28 years old. I have schizoaffective disorder, paranoid type. It's one of the main reasons why I don't want to reveal my face is because of my paranoia. You know, some of you may know me out there, and I tend to get paranoid about stuff like that, so I'd rather keep it a little bit more confidential, if you know what I mean. Although a lot of the stuff that I'm going to say is very private and very personal. So, well, not to be redundant, but like I said, I'm 28 years old. I have schizophrenia, paranoid type. I take medicine on an everyday basis, and it's really not fun because for those of you that know what psych meds could do to you, they could be life-altering. They could completely change you for who and what you are. Pretty much, antipsychotics will make you feel like you're dead. Nothing but a shell. You're hollow inside, no soul, no nothing. You don't feel anything. You have this emotional flatness. Everybody's different, I understand that. So, some people might actually still feel with medication or not. I just want to back up a little bit, take a few steps back, and I want to talk about my first episode and how it happened and my onset of my illness, because I was a normal working individual before this all happened. When I was 23 or 24 years old, I was working a full-time job. I was a cable installation technician. I was working 7 days a week, 16 hours a day. Yes, I was being overworked. I was on the job one day. My boss calls me to do an extra pickup job, it's called, which takes typically another 2-3 hours of your day. So I said, sure, why not? I could use the extra cash. I was getting paid per diem. I was out on the job that day, and the weather just so happened to be 100+ degrees that day. And being a cable technician, for those of you that don't know, involves a lot of physical labor. Carrying ladders, climbing under houses, climbing on top of houses, carrying heavy tools and items with you all the time. But nonetheless, I was out on the job that day, and what happened was, it was 100+ degrees. I was up on a 35-foot ladder, and all of a sudden, I almost fainted and fell off the ladder. I just got extremely lightheaded, and I almost fell off the ladder, like I said. I got this extremely cold feeling throughout my entire body. I thought I was having just a heat stroke, pretty much. So I called my boss and I told him how I was feeling, that I got to get off the field and go home immediately. He said, okay. So I went home, and that night I got home, I was getting these seizure-like Tourette syndrome throughout my entire body. My entire body was uncontrollably shaking and shivering on its own, and my neck was snapping back and forth very vigorously, and I couldn't control it. It was uncontrollable. That happened for 2 days straight. I went back into work about 3 days later. I still had the syndromes slightly. They decreased by about 50%, but my neck and head was still snapping back and forth vigorously. My body was still shaking uncontrollably. I never went to the doctor during that time. About the 4th or 5th day, when I was back at work, I started hearing voices. These voices were telling me really crazy, dark, and disgusting things. I didn't know why. They were making me feel belittled. They were making me feel as if I was nothing. They were making me feel as if I shouldn't be living here on this earth anymore. These voices were evil, were pure evil. So I got home that night. I sat in my chair, and my wife came up to me. She wasn't able to talk to me. I was mute. So the next morning, I didn't sleep that whole night, by the way. The next morning, I called into my job, and I said I wouldn't be returning to work. At this point, this was basically the beginning. This was the onset of my first. This was actually already midpoint for my first psychological break. I had no idea it was coming though, and I had no idea what was going on at the moment. I sat in a room for 5 consecutive days, staring at a wall, not eating, not talking to my wife, not doing anything. I just sat in a chair for 5 consecutive days. In the later days, my wife approached me and she tried talking to me, but I just stared at her blankly. I had nothing to say, nothing to do. Well, later that night, she ended up leaving the apartment. And when she did, that's when all shit hit the fan and I completely had my full breakdown. The voices in my head were going 1,000 miles per hour. My body felt super restless. I didn't know what to do. Couldn't sit, couldn't eat, couldn't sleep, had no relaxation. Nothing but anxiety, paranoia, the feeling of impending doom, and voices in my head that were telling me to do crazy things like cut my veins and to end my life. I had nobody there in the apartment that night, so I called my sister, which was 1,200 miles away at the time. So I called my sister, and she immediately knew there was something wrong with me. She immediately knew. And I wasn't able to explain to her what I was going through, what was going on, because I didn't know what was going on. My reality was unexplainable. The only thing I remember her telling me that I comprehended was, I need you to come back home, which was 1,200 miles away. So that night, I threw everything in the apartment that we owned out. Everything. By myself. I was carrying couches down the stairs, I was carrying vacuums, I was carrying TVs, I was carrying dining room tables, I was carrying chairs, I was carrying everything you could pretty much think of that goes into your ordinary house. I was carrying it by myself all night till the morning time to the garbage. The next morning came. My wife shows back up in this rental car. I told her what my plans were, where I'm going, what I'm doing. I'm going back home, I told her. If you want, you can come with me. So we ended up packing a few boxes. We had a truck. We loaded the truck up. We drove 1,200 miles non-stop, only to fill it for gas. No eating breaks, no pooping breaks, no peeing breaks, nothing. We just drove and drove and drove. We made it back home. and we had a few $1,000s in the bank at the moment, so we found an apartment to stay at immediately. Within the first 2 days, we stood at a motel, and by the third day, we were successful in finding an apartment to live. So we lived in this apartment for about a month until we ran out of money. Within that month's time, I went to my first psychiatric doctor to get evaluated, to get checked out. My first psychiatric doctor recommended I go inpatient. My family and my wife refused that I go inpatient, that I be treated as an outpatient. I didn't know what inpatient was. I didn't know what outpatient was. I was a little bit dumb when I was being evaluated. That's when I found out that I was a schizophrenic with anxiety and paranoid type schizophrenic. When I went to my first psychiatric doctor's appointment back home, down here. I'm gonna jump ahead a little bit now, and I'm gonna get back more into my illness and the way I'm currently feeling and what it's like. So I'm currently on a variety of medications. I take Latuda, I take Ativan, I take Vistaril, I take Prozac. I'm on medium to high dosages of all of them, and yet I'm still getting voices. My voices are still breaking through. I'm going back to the doctor on Monday, which is tomorrow, less than 24 hours away, to maybe up my dose and speak to my doctor and see what he might recommend. I just want people out there that have mental illnesses, diseases, and schizophrenia to know that you're not alone, that there's people out here like me that suffer from these disorders, and that taking your life is not worth it. There's 1-800 hotlines you can call if you're considering committing suicide. There's places that you can go that you could commit yourself into. Just think before you really end your life, because once you end your life, it's over. That's the end. And it's coming for me, everybody. I thought about it since I was probably 12 or 13 years old. But back when I was 12 or 13 years old, I never knew I had a mental illness. These were just suicidal ideations that were in my mind. And as a kid growing up, you don't know right from wrong, or good or bad. But these were the thoughts I was having at a very young age. Was suicidal ideation, ending my own life, not wanting to live past 18 years old. And here I am now, 28 years old. So I'm on all these medications now, and these medications make me completely unmotivated, consistently fatigued. My confidence is at an all-time low most of the time. I can't go outside because I think the government or the police are out there to get me, or something worse will happen. So I tend to just stay inside 7 days out of the week. The only time I go outside is to throw the garbage away or get the mail from the mailbox. I don't go outside unless it's an absolute must, or if I'm going to my doctor's appointment like I am tomorrow. A lot of people say to me, "You don't look like a schizophrenic. You're too well spoken and smart to be a schizophrenic." Well, what does a schizophrenic really look like? What does a schizophrenic really sound like? How smart or how dumb is a schizophrenic? Everybody is different. What a lot of people don't know is that some of the smartest people in the world have the worst mental illnesses, such as schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, you name it. There's most geniuses have mental disorders. I'm not calling myself a genius by any means, but back when I was a kid, I used to never go to school. I would always skip school. And I never studied for the big exams, but I'd always get B's and A's on those exams by the end of the year. And they couldn't figure out how, because I never studied. This was all part of my illness, but I had no idea when I was a kid. I had no idea that I had an illness. I felt euphorically high all the time when I was a kid. I felt on top of the world. I felt great, but this was all part of my mental illness. Current stage, back to where we were talking about my medication and what I'm currently on and doing. To be exact, I'm on 80 milligrams of Latuda. I'm on 150 to 200 milligrams of Visceral as needed. I'm on 3 milligrams of Ativan, and I'm on 40 milligrams of Prozac. I know I'm on a medium dose of Latuda, I'm on a medium dose of Ativan, and I'm on a medium dose of Prozac. The Visceral is a little bit on the high side for being 200 milligrams, although some people take a lot more, but everybody's different. Everyone's body reacts differently. When I first started the Latuda, I had really bad akathisia, which is, involuntary restlessness of your body. It feels like you just can't sit down. It feels like all your nerves and muscles are inside of your body just tingling or on fire. It's a very uncomfortable feeling, very unpleasant. A lot of people actually quit medications because they can't handle the akathisia. So I had akathisia for months upon months, and I just rode it out. And now that I'm on 80 milligrams of 80 milligrams of Latuda for about the past 8 months, it finally has subsided and gone away. So for those of you on medications worrying about all the doom of being on new medication or trying new medication, everyone's different, but hopefully there's light at the end of the tunnel for you, and that things do get easier. And just want you to know that I'm not only here to talk about myself, but I also want you all to know that I'm here for you all, and whatever questions or however you're feeling or whatever you want to write down below, feel free and do so, and I'll do my very best to get back to you. Once again, we'll continue on in the next video, which will probably be by tomorrow. I'll let you all know how my doctor's appointment went and what new medication changes were made. I just want to tell you all that you're not alone. For all you people that are mentally disabled, mentally challenged, mentally unstable, or mentally sick, whatever disorder you may have or may not have, you're not alone. I'm here to listen. I'm here to share my pains, my struggles, my ups, and my downs. I want you all to know you're not alone. I'll speak to you all in the next video. Have a good one.